Millions of people in the UK drink beer every week without realizing how heavily processed some brands have become. What used to be a simple drink made from 4 ingredients is now, in many cases, industrially engineered to be cheaper, faster to produce, and easier to sell, often at the expense of your health. In this video, I'm breaking down 8 UK beer brands you should seriously avoid based on how they're brewed, processed, and altered from what beer was meant to be. After that, I'll show you 3 UK beer brands that are genuinely better choices, made with fewer shortcuts and more respect for traditional brewing. And finally, I'll teach you how to spot safer beer brands yourself so you're not fooled by marketing labels or smooth gimmicks ever again. Let's get started. Bad brand 8. Carling. Carling is one of the most recognisable beers in the UK. It's cheap, everywhere, and marketed as an easy, no-nonsense lager you can drink without thinking. That's exactly why so many people trust it. But Carling isn't brewed for quality. It's brewed for volume and speed. To produce beer at the scale Carling operates, the brewing process is heavily industrialised. Fermentation is pushed to happen faster than traditional beer, which means the yeast doesn't have time to fully do its job. That can leave behind compounds that are harder for your body to process, contributing to bloating, headaches, and that heavy, sluggish feeling after just a couple of pints. Carling is also aggressively filtered. While filtration makes beer look bright and consistent, overfiltration strips out many of the natural elements that come from barley and hops. What you're left with is a thinner drink that goes down easily, but gives your body very little to work with except alcohol. Another issue is consistency over integrity. Carling has adjusted its strength and recipe over the years, not to improve flavour or balance, but to reduce production costs and maximise margins. That kind of fine-tuning doesn't benefit the drinker, it benefits the brand. Many people describe Carling as drinkable but empty. That's not an accident. When beer lacks body and character, people tend to drink more of it, faster. That means a higher alcohol load in a shorter time, putting extra strain on the liver while giving the illusion of a lighter drink. Carling isn't dangerous because it tastes bad. It's concerning because it's designed to be mindless. It's the kind of beer you keep drinking without noticing how much you've had, until your body reminds you the next day. And if you think this level of corner cutting is bad, wait until you hear of the next brand, which takes processing shortcuts even further. Bad brand 7. Foster's. Foster's is widely seen as a light, refreshing beer that's easy to drink over long periods. Many people choose it specifically because it doesn't feel heavy or intense, making it a common option at pubs, parties, and sporting events. The problem lies in how that lightness is created. Foster's is brewed using shortcuts that prioritize speed and cost efficiency over balance. A simplified malt profile allows the beer to ferment quickly, reducing production time but also removing much of the structure that helps the body process alcohol more steadily. The beer is also heavily filtered and highly carbonated. While this makes it feel crisp and smooth, it can increase bloating and gut irritation, particularly when several pints are consumed in a short time. Many drinkers report feeling unexpectedly uncomfortable despite the beer's mild taste. Another issue is the accelerated fermentation process. When yeast is rushed, it doesn't fully break down all byproducts created during brewing. These leftovers are often associated with headaches, fatigue, and that drained feeling the next day, even when alcohol intake didn't seem excessive. Because Foster's lacks depth and body, it encourages faster drinking. Alcohol enters the bloodstream more quickly, placing additional strain on the liver while giving the illusion of moderation. The beer doesn't signal its impact until later, when the effects are already done. The next beer on this list takes the idea of smooth drinking even further, using artificial techniques to disguise how aggressively it's been processed. Bad brand 6. John Smith's Extra Smooth. John Smith's Extra Smooth is marketed as comforting, traditional, and easy to enjoy. The word smooth is front and center. suggesting a gentler beer that's easier on the stomach and safer to drink in quantity. For many people, it feels like a reliable, no-risk choice. That smoothness, however, isn't the result of careful brewing or high-quality ingredients. It's engineered. The beer relies on nitrogenation and processing techniques designed to create a soft mouthfeel, regardless of what's actually in the liquid. Texture is used to distract from how thin the base beer really is. To maintain consistency at scale, the brewing process is simplified and tightly controlled. Fermentation is pushed to meet demand, then corrected later through processing rather than time. This approach strips out much of the complexity you'd expect from a traditionally brewed ale and replaces it with uniformity. For the body, that combination can be deceptive. The beer feels gentle going down, which encourages larger gulps and faster drinking. But the alcohol load still accumulates quickly, and many drinkers report feeling unusually heavy, tired, or foggy after sessions that didn't seem excessive. Nitrogenated beers can also cause bloating and pressure in the gut, particularly for people sensitive to carbonation changes. The smoothness masks these effects until they're already noticeable, often later in the evening or the following day. John Smith's Extra Smooth doesn't challenge the palate, and it doesn't warn you when you've had enough. It's designed to be effortless, even when the impact on your body isn't. Coming up next is a drink that looks more premium on the surface, but underneath the branding, the brewing process raises even more questions. Bad Brand 5. Strongbow. Strongbow is often treated as a lighter alternative to beer. Many people switch to it thinking it's easier on the stomach, less heavy, and somehow a cleaner choice. The branding reinforces that idea: crisp, refreshing, fruit-based, and uncomplicated. In reality, Strongbow presents a very different set of concerns. One of the biggest issues is sugar. Even when it doesn't taste overly sweet, Strongbow relies on high sugar content or artificial sweeteners to maintain consistency and flavour after aggressive processing. That combination puts extra stress on the body, particularly the gut and pancreas, and can lead to sharp energy spikes followed by crashes. The fermentation process is also heavily controlled. Natural cider fermentation takes time and produces depth and balance. With mass-market cider, fermentation is often pushed hard, then corrected later with sweeteners and flavour adjustments. This creates a drink that feels refreshing at first but can quickly cause bloating, acidity, and digestive discomfort. Many drinkers report feeling unusually sluggish or unwell after just a few cans, especially compared to traditional ales or properly fermented cider. That's because the body is dealing with alcohol, sugar, and carbonation all at once, without much natural structure to slow absorption. Strongbow is also easy to drink quickly. Its sweetness and sharp carbonation mask alcohol strength, encouraging faster consumption and higher intake before the effects are felt. This increases strain on the liver while giving the impression of moderation. What makes Strongbow particularly deceptive is how often it's chosen instead of beer for health reasons. In trying to avoid heaviness, many people unknowingly swap one problem for another. Up next is a beer that markets itself as premium and refined, but behind the image lies a brewing approach that raises serious concerns. Bad Brand 4. Stella Artois. Stella Artois presents itself as refined, continental, and premium. The branding suggests quality, heritage, and careful brewing, which leads many people to assume it's a step up from standard lagers. The reality is far less romantic. Despite its image, Stella Artois is produced on an enormous industrial scale. To maintain the same taste across millions of bottles and cans, the brewing process relies on heavy standardization. Fermentation is tightly controlled for speed and consistency, not for flavor development or balance. Stella is also relatively high in alcohol compared to many session lagers, yet it doesn't taste particularly strong. That mismatch is important. When alcohol strength isn't clearly felt, people tend to drink faster and underestimate how much they've consumed. This is one reason Stella has long been associated with feeling rough or irritable after drinking, even when intake seemed reasonable. The beer is heavily filtered to achieve clarity and shelf stability. While this helps with appearance and transport, it removes much of what gives beer its natural body. What remains is a drink that delivers alcohol efficiently, without the buffering effect of richer ingredients. Many drinkers report sharper hangovers, headaches, and a more aggressive drop in mood and energy compared to less processed beers. These effects are often blamed on the alcohol alone, but processing plays a significant role in how the body experiences it. Stella Artois isn't dangerous because it's strong. It's concerning because it hides that strength behind a smooth, premium image that encourages overconsumption. Next, we'll look at a globally famous beer whose recipe prioritizes speed and uniformity above almost everything else. Bad Brand 3, Budweiser. Budweiser is often presented as a symbol of precision and control. Every advert, every slogan, and every can reinforces the idea that this is a carefully engineered beer made the same way every single time. For many people, that consistency feels like quality, but in reality, that consistency comes at a cost. Budweiser's brewing process is built around efficiency rather than tradition. A significant portion of the grain bill is replaced with adjunct ingredients that ferment quickly and cheaply. This isn't done to improve flavor or drinkability. It's done to control cost, speed up production, and guarantee uniform taste at a massive global scale. The result is a beer with very little natural structure. When beer lacks body, alcohol is absorbed more rapidly. Many drinkers notice that Budweiser feels light going down but hits harder than expected shortly after. That rapid alcohol delivery can increase strain on the liver and contribute to fatigue, headaches, and mental fog, even when intake doesn't seem excessive. The fermentation process is also heavily accelerated. Instead of allowing yeast time to naturally clean up byproducts, the beer is pushed through quickly and then corrected later through filtration and processing. This can leave behind trace compounds that affect how you feel during and after drinking, particularly the next day. Budweiser is intensely filtered to achieve clarity and shelf stability. While this helps with transport and long storage, it removes many of the natural compounds that give beer its buffering effect. What remains is essentially a highly refined alcohol delivery system, disguised as a mild lager. Another concern is how Budweiser encourages volume drinking. Its neutral flavor profile and lack of bitterness remove natural stopping points. There's very little sensory signal telling you to slow down, which makes it easy to drink more than intended without realizing it. Many people describe Budweiser as inoffensive or easy, but that ease is carefully engineered. It's not about comfort, it's about consumption. If this kind of breakdown is opening your eyes, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps this kind of investigative content reach more people who assume mass-market beers are all the same. Next up is a beer that proudly markets itself as natural and wholesome, yet relies heavily on industrial processing to maintain its reputation. Bad Brand 2, Heineken. Heineken positions itself as a clean, natural beer made with just a few simple ingredients. The green bottle, the heritage messaging, and the emphasis on purity all suggest something closer to traditional brewing. The problem is that global consistency doesn't come from simplicity, it comes from control. Heineken is brewed on an enormous international scale, which means the beer has to survive long transport times, varied storage conditions, and months on shelves. To make that possible, the brewing process relies on heavy stabilization and filtration. While this keeps the beer looking and tasting the same everywhere, it also removes much of what makes beer easier on the body. Fermentation is tightly managed to meet production targets. Instead of allowing flavor to develop naturally, the beer is guided toward a narrow profile that can be reproduced endlessly. This level of control often comes at the expense of balance, leaving a beer that feels crisp but hollow. Heineken also has a sharp bitterness and carbonation profile that many drinkers find irritating to the stomach. Combined with its processing, this can contribute to bloating, acid discomfort, and that unsettled feeling after just a few pints. Because the beer tastes clean and restrained, it's easy to underestimate how much alcohol you're consuming. The body absorbs it quickly, and the effects tend to show up later. Headaches, fatigue, and a noticeable drop in energy that feels disproportionate to the amount consumed. Heineken isn't marketed as a heavy beer. It's marketed as a responsible one. That's what makes it deceptive. The final beer on this list is one almost everyone trusts, often described as smooth, gentle, and even beneficial, which makes the reality all the more surprising. Bad Brand 1. Guinness. Guinness is often treated as the exception. It's described as smooth, filling, and somehow gentler than other beers. Many people genuinely believe it's better for them. Easier on the stomach, less harsh, even good for you in moderation. That reputation is exactly why it deserves closer scrutiny. Modern Guinness is not the same drink it once was. To produce it at a global scale while keeping the same texture and taste, the brewing process relies heavily on processing techniques designed to control mouthfeel and appearance. The famous creaminess isn't a natural result of traditional brewing. It's engineered to feel smooth regardless of what's happening underneath. That smooth texture can be misleading. Because Guinness doesn't feel sharp or aggressive, people tend to drink it faster than they realize. The body registers comfort, not caution. Meanwhile, the alcohol content and density still place significant strain on the liver, especially when multiple pints are consumed. Guinness is also heavier in residual compounds compared to lighter lagers. While this gives it body, it can contribute to feelings of fullness, sluggishness, and fatigue that many drinkers mistake for satisfaction rather than a physiological response. For some people, this heaviness also translates to digestive discomfort and next-day lethargy. Another issue is perception. When a beer is widely believed to be safer, people are less likely to pace themselves or question how it affects them. That false sense of security is powerful, and it often leads to overconsumption without warning signs. Guinness isn't harmful because it's strong or extreme. It's concerning because it's trusted without question. The branding, the myths, and the cultural reputation all work together to lower your guard. Now that we've exposed the beers that rely most heavily on shortcuts and perception, it's time to look at the other side. Brands that actually respect the brewing process and your body. Recommended brand 3. Timothy Taylor's Landlord. After breaking down beers that prioritize speed, scale, and shortcuts, it's important to show what a better approach actually looks like. Timothy Taylor's Landlord is a good example of how traditional brewing methods can make a real difference in how beer feels, both during drinking and afterwards. This beer is brewed with a strong emphasis on time and balance. Instead of rushing fermentation to meet massive volume demands, the process allows yeast to work at a natural pace. That matters, because slower fermentation gives yeast time to properly break down sugars and clean up after itself. The result is a beer that feels more stable in the body and less likely to cause sudden crashes or discomfort. Another key difference is ingredient focus. Timothy Taylor's uses a consistent, malt-forward recipe that gives the beer structure. That structure slows alcohol absorption and helps the body process what it's consuming more evenly. Many drinkers describe feeling satisfied after 1 or 2 pints, rather than feeling the urge to keep drinking without noticing. Reviews often highlight how balanced the beer feels. People talk about fewer headaches, less bloating, and a more relaxed experience overall compared to heavily processed lagers. The flavour is present without being overwhelming, which naturally encourages slower drinking and better pacing. There's also transparency in how the beer is made. The brand leans into its brewing heritage rather than hiding behind buzzwords like extra smooth or ultra refreshing. What you taste is largely what you get: malt, hops, yeast, and time. Timothy Taylor's Landlord isn't about tricks or gimmicks. It's about doing fewer things more carefully, and that simplicity is exactly why many people find it easier on the body. Next, we'll look at another well-known UK beer that manages to balance consistency with traditional brewing values without relying on aggressive processing. Recommended brand 2, Fuller's London Pride. Fuller's London Pride is often described as dependable, and in this case that's a positive thing. Instead of chasing trends or extreme efficiency, the beer is brewed with an emphasis on balance, restraint, and consistency that comes from process rather than heavy manipulation. One of the standout differences is how the beer is allowed to develop flavour naturally. Fermentation isn't rushed to hit extreme production targets, which gives yeast the time it needs to do its job properly. That results in a cleaner finish and fewer of the rough edges that people often associate with mass-produced beers. The malt profile in London Pride gives the beer real body. That body matters because it helps slow alcohol absorption and provides natural signals to pace yourself. Many drinkers report feeling satisfied sooner rather than feeling compelled to keep drinking without noticing how much they've had. Another advantage is moderation. London Pride doesn't rely on excessive carbonation or artificial smoothness. The mouthfeel is natural, which reduces bloating and stomach irritation for many people. It also makes the beer easier to enjoy slowly, rather than encouraging fast consumption. Reviews frequently mention how predictable the experience is in a good way. Fewer next-day headaches, less fatigue, and a more relaxed feeling overall. That predictability comes from controlled brewing rather than heavy processing or after-the-fact corrections. London Pride isn't trying to hide alcohol behind sweetness or texture. It lets flavour, balance, and brewing discipline do the work. For people who still want a familiar pub beer without the aggressive shortcuts, this is a solid middle ground. The final recommended beer goes even further, focusing not just on brewing quality, but on ingredient sourcing and long-term sustainability. Recommended brand 1, Adnams Southwold Bitter. Adnams Southwold Bitter stands out because it treats beer as something that should work with your body, not against it. Instead of pushing production to extremes, the focus is on restraint, ingredient quality, and long-term consistency. One of the biggest differences is sourcing. Adnams places strong emphasis on where its ingredients come from and how they're handled. That care shows up in the final product, which has a clear, honest flavour profile without relying on artificial smoothness or heavy processing. The brewing process prioritizes time. Fermentation is allowed to progress naturally, giving yeast the opportunity to fully break down sugars and reduce unwanted byproducts. This often translates into fewer headaches, less bloating, and a calmer overall drinking experience, especially compared to beers that are rushed and corrected later. Southwold Bitter also has a well-balanced alcohol level paired with real body. That balance helps regulate how quickly alcohol is absorbed and makes it easier to recognize when you've had enough. Instead of encouraging constant refills, the beer naturally slows the pace. Drinkers frequently describe feeling clearer and more comfortable after drinking Adnams compared to mass-market alternatives. The beer feels substantial without being heavy and flavorful without being overpowering. What sets Adnams apart is intention. Nothing in the brewing process feels designed to trick the palate or disguise impact. It's simply a beer made carefully, with respect for both the product and the person drinking it. With those examples in mind, the final step is knowing how to identify better beers yourself without relying on brand names or assumptions. How to spot safer beer brands yourself. Once you understand how beer is made, it becomes much easier to avoid the worst options and choose something that's genuinely easier on your body. The key is learning to look past marketing and focus on how the beer is actually brewed. Start by paying attention to how the beer is described. Terms like extra smooth, ice, or ultra refreshing often signal heavy processing rather than quality. These phrases are usually used to mask thin recipes, rushed fermentation, or aggressive filtration. Beers that focus on balance, malt character, or brewing tradition tend to rely less on shortcuts. Look for beers with real body and flavor. A beer that feels substantial naturally slows down drinking and helps regulate alcohol absorption. Extremely light, neutral beers often encourage faster consumption, which places more strain on your liver before you realize it. Consider carbonation and texture. Overcarbonated beers and artificially softened mouthfeel can irritate the gut and cause bloating. A more natural mouthfeel usually comes from careful brewing rather than added processing. Pay attention to how you feel, not just while drinking, but afterwards. Headaches, fatigue, stomach discomfort, and brain fog aren't just part of drinking. They're often signs of how the beer was made. When you find a beer that leaves you feeling clearer and more stable, that's not luck, it's process. Finally, don't underestimate moderation through design. Beers made with intention tend to signal when you've had enough. Beers engineered for speed and volume don't. Knowing these signs gives you control. Instead of trusting labels or adverts, you can trust how your body responds and make better choices because of it. A beer is one of the most normalized drinks in the UK, which is exactly why its quality often goes unquestioned. When something feels familiar, we stop examining it. But as you've seen, not all beers are made with the same priorities. The brands to avoid on this list share common patterns: aggressive processing, rushed fermentation, thin recipes, and marketing designed to make you drink more without noticing the impact. Over time, those shortcuts add up, leaving many people feeling worse than they should after what seemed like a harmless night out. The recommended brands show that it doesn't have to be that way. When beer is brewed with time, balance, and respect for ingredients, it behaves differently in the body. People drink more slowly, feel more comfortable, and recover more easily. If this video helped you rethink what's in your glass, let us know in the comments which beers you've noticed make you feel better or worse. Share this with friends or family who might still assume all beers are basically the same. And if you want more breakdowns like this, honest, simple, and focused on what really matters, make sure you're subscribed. Sometimes the biggest risks are hiding in the most ordinary habits.